So we finally got a little bit of rain in Alabama. Praise the Lord. Look at this, guys. It finally rained enough to soak the ground a little bit. But today I gotta run and pick up materials and all that stuff. So I gotta unload that from the trailer and then hook up to the trailer and head on to Montgomery, Alabama to pick up some stuff. So that box is used to keep rock clean when you're laying pipe, and it's not light. Let's see, this thing's weird. It's not really centered. So you can't just pick it up in the middle of it because it'll get all wonky on you. So all right, I think we got it. Uh-oh. All right, that's that. Look at that, that might be why it's a little heavy. That's called a redneck hot tub. That thing was full of water from the rain. But we've been working in a couple locations, and I don't know if it's the Lord or just how my imagination works, but I've started thinking about how some of the things that I've come across can apply to life. Y'all, the best thing about this truck, watch this. That's called your old man step up. Put your foot there and step on up. But the first place that we were working was a prison. And I had this thought come to my mind. Well, it wasn't really a thought. It was more like a phrase. And the phrase was that just because you're in a prison doesn't make you a prisoner. That was pretty good for me. And it was kind of sad because working there, those guys, they told us, part of the thing is you cannot have any communication with the prisoners and basically just have to act like they don't exist. And so you'd see the guys walking in the yard and we could just kind of had to ignore them. And I started to think how bad it would be just to kind of be in there and knowing that, hey, I can't leave for a long time. But then I also started thinking about how, because my mindset was a mindset of freedom, I could be in there and not think like a prisoner thinks. Because I was a free person. So I could be in this situation, in this atmosphere that might be a prison, but because of my mindset and who I am, I'm not actually a prisoner. But it's kind of like one of these things. Don't allow your atmosphere or your surroundings define who you are. I always say, like, if you walk in the kingdom, you impact your environment and surroundings. Your environment and surroundings don't impact you. I don't know if that makes sense. And when you walk with Jesus, you know, you can walk into these places because you know who you are, your identity, and you can bring goodness to them. And so, you know, you might be called to a situation that for some might feel like prison, but for you, because you're not a prisoner, you can just kind of come in and be a light, be joy, be kindness to people. And then when your season's over at that place, move on. But I don't know, I really felt like that phrase, that somebody needed to hear it. That even though right now you might be in a prison, might be a relationship, might be a career, you're not a prisoner. About let that thing get away from me. So that was story number one, or thought number one. The second one, dang, I'm gonna have to get all that off, but I'm not gonna do it on this concrete. I'll drive down there. Look at that topsoil, that's some good dirt right there. All right, now should be ready to hit the road. That's the only thing with coming back in here as an older person. Like everything you pick up's heavy, and there's so much moving throughout the day, just walking and lifting stuff and carrying it, and I'm like, dang, I'm getting a little old here. Look at all that lumber. Trains, I've always loved a train. Look at those things. They're so cool. There he is. If y'all recall at the beginning of the video, I said there were 2 locations that I worked that I got something. So the first one, you know, for me, it was like, man, this is a good word, we'll say. The second one, we were working, and I wanted to do a video out there, but I couldn't catch it. It wasn't, I'll explain. So we were working out at a sewer treatment facility in another city. It was about, I don't know, almost 2 hours away, and just helping close the job out. It was something they'd done before I came on with them, and just finishing up. And I guess the storage lagoon, the poop lagoon, it they have these two big ponds, and one of them kind of holds the sediments, and it treats the sewer and gets it to a certain point, and I guess releases it, which makes me very nervous now. But we were driving by the dam and just looking in. It's kind of, it looks like a lagoon. It's got like the little lily petals all across it, and I looked down and I saw this. It was an alligator, like a 4-foot alligator, and I stopped the truck and got out, and I was like, "Is that an alligator living there?" And that joker jumped off in the water, and I kind of walked to see if I could see any more, and it's like, you'd see them. There were tons of little alligators in there, and they kept splashing and splashing and splashing. And the thought that came to my head was, they are thriving in a crappy situation. But that's what it was. Like, these things, their life is shisty, I guess I'll say. But it was kind of like, man, what a crappy life. And I got to talking with the guy who runs it and asking him about the alligators, and he said there was like an 8-foot mama who would have babies there all, like, every year, and they'd be out there and they'd grow up, and he said when the rains came and when it got to be the wet season, that they would go up and get in a creek and go on. But I started thinking about that, and it's like, that place had to have been somewhat of a sanctuary. I think alligators, I don't know what'll get a baby alligator, but I don't think anything else is brave enough to live in that situation. So even though they were in a crappy situation, they were able to thrive because they were designed to be able to thrive in that. And it ended up, in my opinion, being like a little safe haven for them, even though it's crappy. And so that's the second thing, is like, you might be in a crappy situation, but it's strengthening you, and it's teaching you how to thrive. And I got a short story. We used to do worship, or still do, but I've got a guy who we've been doing it together for years. And I love the guy. He's one of my dearest friends. Good roads here. But we had a young girl, and us being guys, we'd always rag each other and give each other a hard time. And this young girl came to me, and she was like, "Well, Ryan, will y'all please stop doing that? It's hard for me to worship." And so I believe it or not, instead of messing with her, I was just like, okay, that's reasonable. I'll do that. So I quit ragging them, or we quit kind of engaging each other for a season. But this girl, I did make the comment. I said, Well, what if the Lord's teaching you how to worship no matter the situation you're in? And I was being a smart aleck to a degree, but there was an element of truth in that. And so it's kind of like those alligators. Like, see the positive. If it's a bad situation, you weren't created to stay in that bad situation, right? Those alligators weren't created to reside in there forever. So they got to transition out at the right season, right? And in life, we're not created to stay in a bad situation forever. But I do believe sometimes these bad situations will strengthen you for where you're destined to be and what you're destined to do. And it's the same thing with the prisoner. You might be in prison, but you're not a prisoner. It's the mindset that will help you persevere. It'll help you persevere if you know, like, hey, this is the good that's coming out of this bad situation. The prison, the good thing about it is, those guys might have made a mistake. They might be in there for a little bit of time, but the thing we're actually building is like a facility to teach those guys how to operate equipment. So they're going to be prepared, and they're going to be ready for when they're released, so that they can have a job and career, and they don't have to go back to their old ways, we'll say. So, my friends, I'm going to have to pay attention to the road because there's a lot of traffic. But the two words: just because you're in a prison doesn't mean you're a prisoner, and you're going to thrive in your crappy situation. And it's preparing you to do what you were created to do. So my friends, be happy, love somebody today, find something to be thankful for. Just one little thing, and it'll change your perspective. And if you're just unhappy with life, find one person. Think of one person to do something, to show kindness to, and I promise you it'll make your day better. Bless you guys.